alike. AustCyber's 3 priorities are to grow an Australian cybersecurity ecosystem, export Australian cybersecurity to the world, and establish Australia as the leading centre for cyber education. With an industry-first approach, AustCyber collaborates with experts to establish a long-term plan, ensuring stakeholders across the ecosystem understand the key challenges and opportunities. This ensures key players are connected and their efforts are multiplied through collaboration and strong innovation practices. AustCyber helps people find ways to bring their cybersecurity ideas to life and works with both industry and the education sector to develop pathways for talented people to grow. AustCyber also works hard to ensure local policies and government investments create a positive platform for the sector to thrive. Become a friend of the network to stay up to date with AustCyber's latest news and contribute to strengthening Australia's position as a global hub for cybersecurity innovation. How we communicate, work and consume relies on a continuous and infinite flow of data between us and devices, as well as between devices all around the world. Every organisation, large or small, deals with the security of their own or someone else's data and information. Securing data and information is now an essential ingredient for success for every organisation around the world. It's no longer just a business precaution, but a profit-driving competitive advantage. Australia is already home to a progressive network of industry experts and businesses, and the nation's revenue from cybersecurity could triple over the coming decade. That's why the Australian Cybersecurity Growth Network, known as AustCyber, was created. Cybersecurity is one of 6 sectors that have been identified nationally as key to the long-term prosperity of the Australian economy. AustCyber's role is to grow a vibrant, competitive and globally recognised cybersecurity sector. This will lead to increased investment in jobs and help unlock the global potential of Australian businesses across all sectors, private and public alike. AustCyber's 3 priorities are to grow an Australian cybersecurity ecosystem, export Australian cybersecurity to the world, and establish Australia as the leading centre for cyber education. With an industry-first approach, AustCyber collaborates with experts to establish a long-term plan, ensuring stakeholders across the ecosystem understand the key challenges and opportunities. This ensures key players are connected.
Hello, everyone out there in cyberspace. I'm Jackie Listow, and I'm really honoured and very pleased to be presenting this panel today. So today's panel is not going to be any ordinary diversity panel. We're wanting to shake things up. We're wanting to talk about some of the challenges that are going out there. And we want everyone to come away from today's session learning something and feeling inspired to influence real change. First of all, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, this country, throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, water, and culture, including through cyberspace. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and emerging. So, first of all, we would like to start off with 3 quick questions in our poll, which is to the right here, to get a pulse check on where we are today. Don't worry, there's no right or wrong answer here. All we want to do is to find out where we are today, so then in 12 months' time, when we do this poll, we can see that we have moved the dial. So please have a look on the right-hand side here, and we'll have the poll come up now. The first question is, do you have any specific diversity programs or policies in place within your organisation today? The second one is, what percentage of women in cyber-related fields do you currently have in your organisation? And number 3 is, are you happy with the current culture in your current organisation? So some of those results are coming in now. We have quite a few people on the line, so we're hoping that we can get as many people to answer as possible. Fantastic, thank you. Keep them coming through. We'll give everyone another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. So that's really interesting. And, 67% of job seekers consider workplace diversity when they're actually considering a job. And of those, 72% of women consider that extremely important. So let's tuck those results away, and we're going to discuss them a little bit later. And if you have any questions throughout this session, or you have any comments, any controversial comments or stories that you want to share, please put them in the Q&A, but it's not going to be displayed to everyone, but we're going to try and address them after the panel. So although one of the questions that we asked in our poll today was about gender, we all know that diversity is a lot more than just gender. Diversity fosters innovation, and it's good for business. Statistics show that when workforce include people of different race, religion, age, abilities, and gender, they are a lot more productive and they hit their financial targets by up to 120%. And 1 in 4 of Australians' population has been born overseas. So, and we live in a very vibrant, multicultural country with one of the oldest cultures. So we have to get this right. And the people that we're trying to protect in cyberspace, they also come from different races, religions, genders, ages, and abilities. So how can we protect them if we are not them? So, okay, enough about the why. We are here to talk about how we can make real change. So let's get right into it. So today we're going to unpack the real challenges that are faced by a diverse set of individuals in our sector. And it's really important that we understand this, because we need to understand that in order to take the right steps to address it. So what we've done is we've pre-interviewed 5 incredible individuals that are working in security who you may or may not know. And these interviews, I have to say, just absolutely blew us away. Everyone at AustCyber, myself, anyone that was there, just thought the interviews and the way that people responded in their stories were incredible. So we really hope that you enjoy them too. And we've broken these down into 3 main chapters. It's about chance, experience, and impact. And believe us, it was really hard to choose just 3, but we have to start somewhere. And we're hoping that this is going to be the start of many other chapters. So after each of the 5-minute videos, we're then going to discuss the topic with this incredible panel that we have with us today, who I'm now going to introduce. So in our studio today, we have Michelle Price, the CEO of AustCyber. We also have Fatima Baden, who's the Vice President of Customer Success at Secure Code Warrior, in the studio as well. We have Damien Manuel, who is the Chair of ASA, and we have Philip Jenkinson, the CEO of Baden Solutions. So let's get into it now. So the first video that we're going to show you is about chance. How Tamara, Lyndon, Emma, Georgia, and Hunter got into security. The chance that somebody took on them and the opportunities that unlocked. Can we have the first video now, please?
My career didn't start in IT. I started way back in the middle of last century when TVs were just coming out. So I didn't actually start my career in IT until I was 39. I actually felt that I'd been left behind. I loved staying at home and being a mum. And the chance that I got was that my local TAFE dropped a leaflet in my letterbox and said, come to TAFE and study IT. And you don't have to, no prerequisites. You don't have to have any previous qualifications. And I went, that will do it, not even knowing where the on switch was on a computer.
I went to my very first work networking gig, and it was a Rivet event. And it was my first one. I think I was at the start of my second year of uni. And I'd been studying security, and I went along, and it was a cybersecurity event. I didn't have any of the experience that any of the other students and my peers had. I went and spoke to different companies, and there was one company who, I guess, they identified that they liked me, and they understood that they're a cybersecurity company, and they knew I didn't have the diverse cyber IT background that a lot of people would have, but they saw, that I was determined and that I was willing to learn. And they actually gave me my very first job. Yeah, and they said, look, come along, we'll wait till we see there's a project that you could help out on, and, in the meantime, keep letting us know that you're there. So it was a lot of, me emailing and kind of harassing them almost and being like, hey, I'm still here. And they eventually took me on, gave me a shot, and I still work for them today.
So it started with one of the friends of the family was staying at my family house where my dad and Bron was. And she mentioned about the download program involving autism and all that. And from there, they actually got me the actual diagnosis of Asperger's, that's a low-ending autism, that gave me the forms and all that. From there, when they got brought up again, the program, because I missed it the first time and wasn't in the state to really look at that, my dad kept a track of it and mentioned it to me. So we decided to go to it. Gave me a chance because one of the biggest things I've noticed in looking for jobs is that every entry level asks us for 3 to 4 years of experience in the actual job. And you can't, unless you're an intern for 4 years, can't get that.
That was applying for the Dandelion program for me, and getting through. Having that different, the interview stage was through a workshop was just fantastic, because it actually meant I could showcase the skills that I have. I'd found that in the past with previous jobs that were not cyber related. If I had that chance to actually step in and have a chance to really show off what I can do, it was fun, but also I got to meet other people who are in the autistic community, and I had that chance to develop some skills that I didn't previously have. I wasn't feeling particularly confident about, because I don't have an IT background at all. I have no skills whatsoever other than just, at home PC use. So for me, being able to show off that I could do it, and I was actually really good at it.
I definitely think that there was 2 distinctive moments where people just really took a chance on me, and it sort of boosted I guess my knowledge and my potential career in cybersecurity. I think the first one that I really remember was when Code Like a Girl put me forward to be a Melbourne Knowledge Week ambassador, and also brought me on to represent them on ABC Radio. The other major point I remember when somebody really took a chance on me is I went to a sort of girls in STEM workshop at one of the major banks, and I guess they also just saw how much passion I had and how much I was willing to just go that extra mile. They actually pulled me aside from the entire 50 girls in the workshop and said, we would like to specifically offer you work experience. And I just remember literally crying on my way home from that workshop. I'm pretty sure I almost got run over by a tram, because it was just I'm this tiny dot to them, this multi-million-dollar company, and I'm one girl, and someone saw how much I cared and how much I wanted to go far and actually cared about that. It was definitely a really humbling experience, but also I think it kind of showed me that the work you can put into IT can really pay off.
Wow, what powerful, inspiring stories that they just shared with us today, and showing how opportunities and chance can really make a big difference and unlock those doors. So I'm going to go to the panel now and start our discussion. And I'm going to start with Philip. Philip, did you give someone a similar opportunity, and what was it? And what did that unlock for yourself and them?
Yeah, well, I have got a pretty cool story that I'd like to give, but I'd also like to thank you to one of the panelists who gave me a chance, and that was Fatima. Secure Code Warrior was our very first purchase order in federal government, and if that organisation didn't support us to the length and depth that it did, then Vadim Solutions perhaps may not have had the fast start that we did. So Fatima, thank you very much.
Very welcome. Very welcome.
So look, in the theme of those amazing kids coming out and adults coming out talking about the chance that they've been given, there is a common theme that we've picked up in the industry that, unfortunately, I believe, and this is my opinion, I believe that our industry has placed some fairly significant barriers to inclusion in IT security. And one of those barriers is in international certification. So Solutions has identified that participation for First Nations men and women, we have to overcome that barrier where that little girl was talking about, an enormous amount of experience that was needed to get a start. And then the young chap was talking about, well, how do you actually amass that experience if no one's going to give you a chance? So, through the talking that we do with First Nations communities up and down the Eastern Seaboard, we identified a young lady who came out of RMIT with a Bachelor in Computer Science, who was desperate to be taken seriously in a SOC team. And the way that we all thought that we could make this lady capable to do what would be expected of her in an entry-level SOC team was to pay it forward by providing her with a SANS incident response forensics investigators course from our own from our own business. Now, the result that impact had on this young lady, we're still in almost daily contact with her. I can guarantee you that she will be the first First Nations CISO of any federal government agency in Canberra. She's an absolute pocket rocket, but it just takes one person, one organisation to take the leap of faith and give someone a chance, because when you do that, the effect will be life-changing. So that's my little story.
Thank you for that, Phil. And does anyone else want to add from the panel? Maybe Fatima?
Sure, Jackie, thanks. I think one of the stories that I'll talk about is we had a young lady apply for a role at Secure Code Warrior. Looking at her profile was really different to the other candidates that were applying. She didn't really have, the role within my team was a customer success manager. So she didn't really have that customer success management experience. She didn't have any cyber security experience. But what I saw through her background and her profile was that, she started working at Starbucks, making coffees, and really quickly made her way up to eventually being store manager. And sort of speaking with her and seeing the drive and how sort of enthusiastic she was, and all the research she'd done before speaking with us, I could see a lot of really transferable skills, that customer service sort of experience transferring over to this role. And I knew that whatever we taught her in this field, she would learn it really quickly. And that's exactly what she did. She's an absolute superstar. And by the end of this year, she will be promoted. So I'm really proud that, you don't always have to tick every single box. And there are people with skills we can transfer over into this industry. So that was really great.
That's really amazing. So you've recognized that potential and the capability that she has, and
yes.
you've brought her in and she has excelled in terms of, you know, your
Exactly.
expectations.
Yeah,
fantastic.
absolutely.
Both of those stories.
Thank you.
Sharing that. And what about Damien? Do you have something that you would like to share of something similar nature?
I think getting the first job in the IT/cyberspace, you know, somebody taking a chance on someone myself, who didn't have a background at the time from an education perspective in cybersecurity. You know, I was involved heavily from a young hacker perspective, but didn't actually have any qualifications or any sort of formal training. And turning up to an interview with a floppy disk with some web pages that I designed, and that person took a chance on the content that was on that floppy disk, and sort of that started sort of a whole career progression. So I think it's really important to give people who don't necessarily have formal qualifications, and it's based on their aptitude, skills, desire and interest, and the passion, for people to give them a chance to actually make a difference.
I definitely agree. Like, there's so many people out there that have those capabilities that can be transferred, and they just need that one chance in order to then, you know, get into this space. And Michelle, have you, leaving you to last, what do you think about this opportunity and giving somebody a chance? I'm sure you've given somebody a chance in your career.
Thanks, Jackie. Well, I, of course, being somebody that loves to push the boundaries of how we can show what good looks like for our sector, I'm really proud to say that I've given many people a chance. And not just directly in AustCyber, but also across a whole range of other organisations by connecting awesome people with potential into a whole range of different cybersecurity companies. And also corporates as well, and even recently some of the venture capital firms as well. So to be in such a privileged position where I can see all of those flowers bloom by those connections being made, we all know that cybersecurity actually is a human endeavour at the end of the day. And being able to foster a trusted community of people who really look out for each other and are focused on the mission that we are, you know, sort of trying to do in our day-to-day, and recognise that we shouldn't spend so much time fighting against each other. We join together. It's being able to give a voice to all of those different parts of the Australian community to bring into our community in cybersecurity so that we can then serve the Australian community. It's a very, very privileged position to be in, and every day I have the great honour of being able to give someone a chance. And whether that be at the very start of their career, like Tamara and some of the other people that we saw on the video just now, whether it's right up to older people who thought that they were going to retire, but want to give back, and being able to connect them into circumstances that they can use their knowledge and expertise across the generations to be able to give back. It's amazing.
And so do you think that we need to change the way in which we recruit in our industry? Sorry, this question's off the...
off the cuff, which I love. I do that to people all the time. It's nice having it back at me. Absolutely, we do. I think that one of the great things that we are given by the, the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education's workforce development framework out of the US, which AustCyber pushes pretty hard, is a whole lot of flexibility that we haven't really had before. Being able to make up a whole series of competencies and skills in a role that actually reflects the environment. There are very, very few jobs within cybersecurity that are specifically focused. Even forensic analysts these days also get involved in a whole range of concurrent types of jobs that previously would have been considered as being discrete roles. They're just not anymore. And that's because of how we have to try and keep up with malicious cyber actors, but also work through the systems that are governed by the law on the light side of the equation. So having that multidisciplinary approach in people as well as within teams is increasingly important. And the sooner that we recognise that this is one of the success factors in organisations like Secure Code Warrior and Batum Solutions, where they take that very multidisciplinary approach to the kinds of people that they recruit, and also looking across all of those backgrounds and diversity areas that we've described so far in this conversation, demonstrates that those are the companies that are going to push forward and be the household names of tomorrow by taking that approach. So those that don't, even today, take that approach are going to start to lose out, especially as this economy starts to recover from the pandemic.
Thank you for that, Michelle. So the next chapter is about challenging experiences. So sometimes I hear about unpleasant, stories, but a lot of the time I hear about the good stories as well. I'm very lucky that in my career I've been supported throughout my career. Others have not been so much so. So to understand, how change can actually happen, it's important to understand what these real challenges are. And in order to do that, we need to understand what are the real stories behind it and then how to address it. So this next chapter, we're asked the 5 people what their challenges have been or what they've seen and how they have actually overcome that. Could we please show the next video, please?
When you get overloaded emotionally, for me specifically, and to quite a few autism people, and some part of my point of view, is that we can go into a loop. And people don't understand that at times. And when that happens, we don't learn well, we get more acclimatized, and we try to, some people have different ways to treat it. I normally shut myself away and try to avoid contact. And if we don't have a way to help deal with the emotions, we can start coming out of the issue, then come back into it and revisit it, and it just doesn't stop. It's a loop, pretty much. And not because it's just so much to deal with. I'm not sure it's related to autism, but like one thing I find for people like me, or specifically me, or maybe autism, is that not getting feedback is a pain.
Being young and not really being in the workforce yet, I haven't seen really that much discrimination. Especially what I have really seen is people understanding how important diversity is and wanting to include more diverse people into cybersecurity. But the only area which I've seen issues is in, I guess, universities, especially really big universities, where if there's like a female who walks into a like cybersecurity room, they tend to get, I guess, spoken over and ignored. And this might be just like a cultural societal thing, as in there's things where women are sort of told, like, still feel like they need to be seen and not heard. Even if like a female doesn't really feel comfortable standing up too much for herself, which she should be able to, but even if she can't, I guess they sort of still continue to talk over. Even when they are confident to say, I want to talk about this is my idea, listen to me, how they just sometimes completely get ignored.
Autism is judged by how our autism impacts other people. And that's why someone like me, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 31, because my never really impacted other people enough for me to get a diagnosis. So when I have a little autistic moment or I do something and people are like really taken aback, and I'm like, well, it's that duck on the water and then the little feet paddling under the surface, and you don't see the feet, but they're paddling away, trying to madly keep up with everything. And that's what I would like people to know, that it really is, it's not how it's what's going on inside us. It's not how it impacts everyone else, and it shouldn't be judged that way.
I find that sometimes if I walk into a brand new class, my students might look at me and go, wow, you're getting towards retirement age, what do you know about IT? But it doesn't take very long when you start talking about technology and getting excited about it and getting your hands on it. You gather respect pretty fast. And for me, it's all about respect. Once you've got respect and you're working with your colleagues, who you are, what gender you are, what your racial heritage is, what abilities you have or disabilities you have, all fade away. In fact, to me, that's the wonderful enabling characteristic of IT, is that all that stuff really doesn't matter anymore. It's all about the bits and the bytes and where the messages flow. That's the important stuff.
I have experienced an uncomfortable and, I guess, unfair moment in the industry. And I mean, it's not just siloed to cybersecurity. This could be commonplace across all industries. But for me, it was because of my gender. So basically, I was working and the people that I was doing some work for, they would talk to my colleague instead of me, or they would and my colleague was a male, an older male, or they would, and I think there were multiple times when they didn't remember my name, they didn't address me by my name, and they wouldn't ask me for any input, any, any thoughts that I had on the project or anything like that. They'd all defer to my colleague. The AWSN, so the Australian Women in Security Network, I met someone that I would consider a mentor, and she has opened my eyes to so much in cyber. And she's also actually kind of inspired me to put myself out there more and take on opportunities. And she basically got me through that incident, but also gave me enough confidence to get through if that should ever come up again, basically by just her getting on with her job and getting it done. And she got it done, and she delivered really, really excellent work. And that kind of showed me that, look, I'm a girl, but that's all. I'm a girl. There should be no disadvantage or advantage based on that.
I love those stories, and those videos are just so touching for me. And as they've mentioned, these issues are not just security, they are wider than that. And the things that we've learned here about, these life-changing challenges that people go through and how they actually overcome them. And so I'd like to move to the panel and start with Fatima to ask, have you ever seen something unfair or difficult during your career? And what did you champion or help this person, and what impact did it have on their career?
Thanks, Jackie. I mean, watching that video, I can relate, and I've seen lots of things on all those different topics. So it's really interesting watching that. And I'm sort of nodding my head going, yes, yes. So I think one of the examples I wanted to use is really around the idea that we should have to show that, you should have conversations. And when we are having conversations around diversity, if we do see things that we feel are not the way that they should be, is to open up a conversation, stand up and talk about it, but then take action afterwards to make sure that we do things around that to change it. So one of the examples I can give you from Secure Code Warrior is we advertised a role and we had many applicants that came through. We ended up hiring 2 people for this role. One was male, one was female. And I think as I started to look at that role, obviously like that, it had the exact same spec from face value. It looked like the same role, the same scope of role. We hired a male and a female. They both sort of had the pretty similar background, similar skill sets, similar experience. So I really couldn't see the difference between these two. But what I did see was that the male's salary package was 10% more than the female's. So I was like, why is this? And I started to question that. And as I started having conversations internally, it turned out that the male candidate, and good on him, sort of negotiated his package up and was able to get it, whereas the female was like happy with it and took it. And while that all sounds great, what I do know from lots of the research I have done on diversity is that males tend to, negotiate a lot more, and it's harder for a female to have those negotiation conversations. So I decided to raise it with the leadership team, and we had a really long discussion around what is the best thing to do. Do we say that, yes, he's negotiated, so he can get paid more, or do we write this and go back to her and say, look, we want to be fair, and we even it out. And the decision was made that if they're both the same role, the same background, then the right thing was to do just to go back and to rectify that. So it's not just about rectifying it now, but how do we put in things in place as we hire more people to make sure that these are the things that we're looking at, not just about gender, race or anything. If you're in the same skill set, you're in the same role, the salaries should really align, and really making sure that we set that standard going forward with that.
Definitely equality for all. That's very true. And Michelle, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thanks, Jackie. Just amazing. Thank you, Fatima. That was absolutely. So I'm going to get a little bit uncomfortable.
right now. So this is absolutely a bit of a warning for our people in the audience tuning in. I've already warned our panelists. One of the really, really key issues that is a barrier to the diversity within our sector, and it's not just to do with women, it is also to do with other minority groups. And I know that this is particularly acute for those who are neurally diverse, as well as First Nations people. That absolutely our industry is part of the broader technology industry's experience around sexual assault and sexual harassment within the workplace, as well as beyond the workplace through digital means. And as I have increasingly found my confidence to be able to talk about this publicly, I have been a victim of sexual assault, and that has been perpetrated by people in our industry. And some in the audience will personally know the people who are the perpetrators of those events. So what I have done in being able to use my position of where I am in my career right now is to be able to give advice to young women, but also young men around those issues. And I have in fact also helped women directly in taking action with their employers and in other parts of their lives against those kinds of activities. This is a really serious issue that is facing a part of our society. It does happen in all industries, but it is actually happening in our industry too. And it's that standard that we walk past is the standard that we accept. And I'm saying today publicly in a broader audience for the first time that absolutely we will not tolerate that kind of behaviour in our industry. And part of what we're going to talk about a bit later on in this session is how we will enable both leaders and managers, but also colleagues and employers overall to be able to take action definitively on that kind of behaviour. And I know that Philip and his organisation has been taking some great action in this space too, but all of us need to take action together. It is not okay. And so we will be able to empower not just future generations of workers coming into our industry when we have another 17,000 minimum people that we need to bring into this industry over the next 6 years. We believe it's actually 10x that when you take the indirect impacts of cyber across the economy. That's a significant barrier, not just to people coming through school, but also those workers who want to transition into an industry like cybersecurity that's in such high demand. It's not okay. Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks for bringing up that uncomfortable topic, but at the same time, thank you, because I hear these stories, unfortunately, quite a bit, and we definitely need to do something about it. And it's not just sexual harassment, it's also bullying as well. And it's not okay, as you said, Michelle. I'm going to turn to the other panelists to ask if somebody would like to add to what Michelle just spoke about.
It's hard to follow. It's hard to follow Michelle with that statement. But what I will say, I see in the industry from my perspective as a non-Indigenous man who works in an Indigenous-owned organisation, is the difference, and this is having experienced it firsthand and witnessed it firsthand, the difference between being angry and assertive. If you're a white man, you're assertive. If you're a black man, you're angry. And when we present ourselves to customers to challenge something, or vendors to challenge something that hasn't gone our way, if I'm leading that conversation, then I'm assertive. And I think that is fundamentally incorrect. And that's something that I'm trying to change. And I think the industry needs to pull their socks up and lift the bar of the way that we all treat each other, men, women, regardless of your culture, your religious beliefs, or your sexual orientation. I think it's a very clear shot over the bows that Michelle has just done, and I, for one, support that 100%.
And a lot of what we talk about is, trying to get people in, but if we don't fix the culture that we have today in the industry, then really good people will leave. So I think it's something that we all need to address as an industry. Damien, do you have something that you would like to add to this?
I'd definitely like to talk about sort of two aspects. One is keyboard warriors, which, I thought our industry was above that. But, during an incident where the ASA board, for example, terminated the CEO, people who I knew as work colleagues and I would consider friends turned against us without the facts and became keyboard warriors. And it was quite disappointing to see that occur and receive sort of that vitriol, if you like, from certain individuals, particularly during a time when sort of myself and my family were sort of dealing with the consequences of our daughter at the time, who was 16, finding out that she had been raped when she was 14 at school. And so, you know, going through that whole process of seeing the industry, who you would consider, you know, people defending their organizations, you would think they would also show a level of sort of respect and wanting to know the facts before jumping on the bandwagon or using it to promote their own businesses or social media profile, to actually step back and sort of think about people, because everybody's a human and we need to treat everybody with respect. And, you know, going through those sort of challenges and what my daughter's sort of gone through, you know, she was extremely brave coming forward. You know, she knew it was going to be a long journey. She, you know, we took it to prosecution. And while the Me Too movement is great, it's just the start of the journey. There's a whole component that comes after in terms of families, you know, dealing and reliving the whole experience through that sort of prosecution process, and learning that there are some really sort of broken things in our system from a society perspective, where the police will only prosecute certain cases if they're confident that they can win those cases. It's almost like a KPI. And so they'll only put people who they believe are going to be strong enough to be on the witness stand to take cross-examination. And you know, those kinds of things, that's really, really unfair. And you don't learn this until you are actually immersed into that kind of environment. So it's really about, you know, think first about not being a keyboard warrior, you know, and those who do see people acting as keyboard warriors to really stand up and call those people to account, because, you know, those people wouldn't behave like that in real life, but yet they seem to take a liberty as soon as they're behind a keyboard and they're not, you know, physically seen. And then also, you know, for people who have been victims of sexual assault and attacks, to, you know, we really need some sort of network to help support people through that process, because it is a long and enduring process that people have to go through. And I don't think there is enough support and enough understanding within the industry as well.
Wow, thank you for sharing that story, Damien, and Michelle as well. Like, those honest, you know, stories are important for us to talk about, and I'm really pleased that you were able to share that. From a personal level, you know, I've also, you know, experienced something of similar nature, and I never reported it because I just thought that maybe it was me being paranoid, or, you know, I didn't think anything can come from it. So now I kind of regret not saying it. So, you know, I think we need to make a safe place for people to be able to report it, to make sure that we have, you know, support systems out there, like you said, Damien. There just doesn't seem to be enough of that out there. And if anyone else wants to say anything else in the panel to add to what the other panelists have said, I'll open it up to the panel to put their hand up if you want to say anything else.
Jackie, I might say something, and it's not sort of following on from what Michelle said. It's just sort of, I feel just generally our industry sort of needs to build an environment where females do feel more comfortable coming in. And while I can I'm mortified at what I'm hearing, and I have heard incidences before as well, I think that we have made some progress in our industry around making it a more female, sort of more attractive area, industry for females to come in. Way before Damien was on the ASA board, I was on the ASA board for a long time, and I was responsible for sponsorship for ASA. And one of the things that I noticed as I started to go to other events and sort of see all the sponsors and vendors, and this is about 15 years ago, so it's quite a while ago now, was that you would see a lot of the marketing and advertising really just directed at males as opposed to females. Particularly, you know, we had promotional models wearing almost nothing, and things like that. And I know for a fact, and one of the girls spoke about it earlier, when I was nodding my head, is I was with a bunch of my male colleagues, and one of these promotional models would come up and she would give us, she gave everybody a brochure, but not me. Not sure why, because I was there just like that they were. And I was really, and I felt like, and even some of the giveaways that were being given away were really male focused. So I sort of, when I was doing the ASA conference, I made a rule that no vendors were not to bring, you know, these promotional models, and to sort of put some guidelines around making sure that this marketing is not going to be something that's either offensive or going to want females to kind of not feel comfortable there. So I'm really proud that, you know, many years ago I did that. And I'm really proud to say that looking at a lot of events, not just in Australia, but across the globe, we're starting to see that shift where people are starting to see, look, this isn't, we're not just trying to attract males. This has to be a great environment for females as well to contribute. So kind of more of a good news story, but hearing the stories I'm hearing today, there's still so much more we need to do, but there have been some baby steps, I think, taken, but lots more to do.
Thanks, Fatima, for that. And I agree. There has been, I feel, since I started in security, there's been progress. We're going in the right direction. But companies are having the right conversations now about diversity, which I think is fantastic, which they weren't having a few years ago. And so, you know, we've been having a lot of discussion about this diversity, but what can we actually do to make real impact and real change is kind of the next chapter that we're going to be talking about. So what we asked in the next video was, what were some of the key challenges that these people saw? And what do we need to do to drive real change? So could we please have the third video now, please?
The most important thing that the cyber industry needs is people. We need people to come in. After all, I want to retire soon, so somebody needs to take over. Nah, not really, I'm just kidding. I'm never going to retire.
Some of the main pathways to cybersecurity are through maths and gaming, which sometimes maths can be taught in a way which people don't like. And also it depends on what gaming community you're in. I think when there are not a lot of diverse people, for example, women in the community, then women see, oh, there's not a lot of women in the community. Therefore, when I go into there, of course, there's going to be a little bit of discrimination and I guess a bit of a weird environment because they're not used to having women in there, which I think is putting some women off.
How autism is like the most complicated, like, picture, like, say, have a 2D puzzle, picture like 3D and then 4D and then 5D, and just make it more and more complicated, because then you have different cultures see things differently from each other. Australia's hot super cultures. We have very different culture and multiple different country culture in our land, and they all mix and blend. It doesn't always work. It is a bit messy. And autism in each area will be different because of how they grew up, how they've been treated, because it's not some condition or sickness. It's just how we look at things differently. And that is sometimes the hardest thing to try to get across. That we're not being rude at times or being snarky or treating you bad at times for some people. It's just that what we're seeing is different.
Well, I think the imbalance in the workforce is reflected in the imbalance in classrooms and who goes into training. I've had years where I've had no females in my classes. Right now it's getting better, so girls are getting more interested and more confident.
It's my responsibility to try and make it easier for the next people who come, because yes, I'm happy to be that 10% more confident. I'm happy to stand up to the men who interrupt me when I'm trying to put my idea through, but I don't want women to have to do that, and I don't want the culture in cybersecurity to be that women have to do that, because then when women are thinking about what careers they want to do, they know if they go into cybersecurity, then they will have to do that. So I think it's really just making sure that people of diverse backgrounds, and especially women, don't have to always, I guess, make up for that disadvantage that they face.
You have to find the strength to be confident in yourself, and that's something that can be hard for people that are just starting out or people that are, you know, on the lower, just like on the lower side of representation.
So maybe we just need to change the perception of what industry really wants. And what they want are people who can get on with other people, and who can listen and who can explain in just clear and simple terms.
The autistic community have the saying of like, nothing about us without us. So if you're looking to hire neurodiverse people, you have to be consulting neurodiverse people in order to make those changes. And I think that kind of falls into all aspects of diversity.
We actually have a good fit for a job, but because we get treated, because you don't fit my point of view and you probably will potentially need learning or something, it could be any reason of a person, you get stopped. You don't even get reply backs. You just, that because you're too old.
Is basically don't say no. I've put myself in positions that, I mean, I went to Africa, and I studied over in Africa, and I delivered a social enterprise project that involved cyber. And basically, if I'd said no, I would never have gone. I never would have developed any confidence or professional and business skills that I did. And, you know, it's those experiences that changed my life. I jumped into a codeathon, never coded in my life. Didn't have to code because I was able to focus on the parts that were interesting to me. My main piece of advice would be consider yourself a champion for change in the industry. Consider, like, don't limit yourself just because you might be a student or just because you might not have finished your degree yet, or you don't know as much about networking as the next person. Be the champion that you want to see in the industry, and I think that'll be recognized by people around you, and you'll grow far more than you ever thought possible.
Wow, what beautiful words of inspiration. Such wisdom in all those 5 people. And I love those 5 people so much. Thank you for sharing that. So, you know, we've learned that, you know, changing the perception of security at a younger age is important. Respecting that everyone looks at things differently is important. Changing the way we recruit is something we need to look into. And be the champion that you want to see in industry is important as well. So I'd like to now ask Michelle, what do you think are the main issues or challenges that our sector needs to tackle, and why is this important? And if you can, slip in there a little bit about how Australia's culture compares with other sectors globally.
Thanks, Jackie. I do think that there's quite a bit that we've discussed today that we need to work on. That if I was to narrow it down, I think that the words that are common across all of those that have given us those amazing little clips of their views out of the videos, that, you know, be a champion. But we do need to provide the right kind of safe environment for people to feel as though they're being valued in that championing of the right kind of behaviours. So I think that what we do need to do is break down some of the misperceptions. A couple of years ago at the AustCyber, I remember that Hivent actually put together the, you know, breaking apart that sense of everyone wears a hoodie. And that we wanted to break those visual kinds of associations between what the rest of Australia saw hacking and cybersecurity to be. That's definitely part of it. And I would refer people to actually an amazing project that's just come out of the US from the Hewlett Foundation on some amazing images that are covering across all of the different areas of diversity that we've talked about today. And the images are not just from the US. And it's great to see some Australian images in there as part of that package to be able to change some of the visual perceptions. But in terms of the cultural perceptions, one of the questions that's actually come up from the audience is, you know, it's really, really hard to be over the age of 35 in our industry, that our industry is very ageist. And how do we break that down? Well, this is a really interesting perception. So according to our data at AustCyber, of course, you all know that we have a lot to do with founders and entrepreneurs at AustCyber with all of our AustCyber companies, of which we now have over 350 in the portfolio. The average age of a founder in the cybersecurity industry in Australia is 46. that's not really well understood by most people who engage with our industry. I think if we look around at the conferences, we would see that that's actually true for the people that attend our conferences. But outside of cybersecurity, people would say that it's actually the average age would be like 30, 33. So this is really interesting. We do actually have a breadth of age within our sector. But against what we've already heard in the data from the education system is that we're going to see these kind of bumps, these lumps in the volume of different people coming through from the education system into the workforce. And we know from data as well that right now in Australia, only 1 in 6 people who are studying anything to do with cybersecurity and information security, only 1 in 6 is a woman. And so we know that that's going to cause problems. But actually, when we look at the anecdotal evidence, and I'd love to be challenged on this, I want to be proven wrong. We're looking at maybe 1 in 250 for First Nations people. And we're actually looking at sort of somewhere in between when we look at the average non-white or Caucasian people who are studying in cybersecurity and information security. So the pipeline is really important. And it's not just about pipeline in education, it is also about transitioning workers from other parts of the economy. And that's where we'll see a huge groundswell of people moving across from industries that have really suffered quite badly from the pandemic, moving across into technology sectors, including cybersecurity. And there's been a lot of discussion in the media over the past 9 months about cybersecurity. And so as a result of that, of course, the foundations that we are trying to set out of this discussion about what we will and we won't celebrate in our culture of our industry is what will go to the very heart of whether or not we can attract and retain people. So just before I wrap, Jackie, I'm just going to give us a little bit of a hint about where we sit internationally. So internationally, out of an ISC Squared report on women in cybersecurity last year, so this is quite recent data, women account for around about 1/4 of the overall international workforce. That's much higher than 2017 when it was only sitting at around about 11%. We know from both AustCyber and ACER data that that's around about the same for Australia. And when we look at the growth in the number of women sitting in leadership positions, that's also changed quite a bit. We need to change that to address the manels though. And I want to say something about the manels at this point. AustCyber has worked incredibly hard to have diversity, not just of gender, in our panels across this week. Us women and those of ethnic diversity are actually in really high demand. So some of the panels that we've had, of course, it's been my face that has represented at least the gender diversity. That's because we do need to increase the number of people from ethnically diverse backgrounds and also from gender diverse backgrounds. Nearly half of all women in cybersecurity professionals around the world are millennials. That's really interesting from a management point of view. So that actually contrasts to the fact that most of the men within the sector are now Gen X. So we're seeing a lag effect here. And so hopefully we can rapidly step over that in Australia. Coming back to Australia though, what I want to highlight around neurologically diverse Australians coming into cybersecurity is that from a Sane Australia study that was performed last year, 78.1% of participants in the survey have said that they have experienced some level of stigma or discrimination against their needs in the workplace. That is incredibly high. And when we think about all of the positives that exist within our sector's culture, of which there are many, we really do have the opportunity to champion what a workplace can look like when we welcome neurologically diverse people within our sector, because we do now shows that we really do need everyone across the spectrum in cybersecurity to think like the attackers think. And so there's a lot to unpack within that, but I'll pass back to you now, Jackie.
100%, Michelle. And what I'm going to ask is that the audience has to do a bit of work now, because we have to do this together. So what we've done is, as a panel, we've come up, and AustCyber and speaking to other people, is that we've come up with a list of some of the things that we think that can help to drive real change. And we want as many organizations to jump on board on this as possible, and to do this pledge. So on the screen, as you can see here, is a list of different ideas and things that we think that we can put into the pledge. If you could select the top 5 things that you think that we should do as an industry this year. And what we'll do is we will take the ones which we think are the most popular, the top 5, and we will put that into a pledge and to send that round to everybody. because, we have momentum and we have seen progress. We have the drive now. So now's really the time to act. So I wanted to thank everyone for joining our panel today. I wanted to thank also Emma, Lyndon, Georgia, Hunter, Tamara, Damien, Michelle, Philip, and Fatima for being very great panelists today.
Thank you.
Over to you, Michelle.
Jackie. Thank you so much, Jackie. And if we could just maybe put back up on the screen all of the panelists without me, just so that we can have the audience see one more time all of those amazing faces that have been with us today. I'm giving them all a big round of applause from the studio here. I get to say that in person to Fatima, which has been amazing. But I'm sure that everyone out in the audience really has taken at least 16,000 things away from this conversation. And it's taken the bravery of the people that you see on your screen right now to be able to give those perspectives. And we've really only just scratched the surface. We know that. But as Jackie just said, we are going to take action on this, and we really mean that. And of course, those who know me know that I stick by my word. So you really will see quite a bit of material coming out of this session over the coming months, and it really will be something that we come back in 12 months' time to assess whether or not we've moved the dial on this incredibly important issue within our sector. So thanks to you, Jackie, for doing that very great job of moderating that session and taking us through all of those different topics. So now, colleagues, it comes time to close Cyber Week. So I'd like you to indulge me for a couple of minutes if you can, because this is a super important part of how we close out a virtual conference, a set of activities through the week. And what I'd really like to do is take the full spirit of what Australian Cyber Week is all about and read out to you all of the different organisations that have been involved in the very many activities that we've had over the course of this week. Thank you so much to our platinum sponsor of ASA, the Australian Information Security Association. And of course, that is why Damien was a part of the panel, and he would have had views anyway as part of what we do. The gold sponsor, Secure Code Warrior. Thank you to Fatima and Peter and the team for being such strong supporters of not only Cyber Week overall, but also the National Missing Persons Hackathon. The silver sponsor of Casada, as well as Quintessence Labs. Fantastic to see all of those AustCyber companies appearing there. And event sponsors throughout the week, CyberCX and Palo Alto Networks, who are investing so much in the fabric of Australian cybersecurity industry. Our event partners, CyRise, Secure Code Warrior, CyzoLens, BugCrowd, the Australian Federal Police and the Missing Persons Coordination Centre, Trace Labs, Startup Victoria, Cinch Security, Women Speak Cyber, the Australian Investment Council, CyberMerc, Vault Cloud, Telstra, Commonwealth Bank, OSINT Combine and Fifth Domain. It takes a crowd, doesn't it? What we also do through Cyber Week is make sure that we provide a platform for great Australian cybersecurity companies. And what I'm going to do now is deliberately read out to you all of the organisations that are featured on our panels over the course of the week as a means for you to learn all about the knowledge that they have to share and put back into the maturity of our industry. So get ready, here we go. Well, we've got a couple of people that are Australians contributing into the development of the sector. I've got a little bit of a cute grin here. Minister Peter Dutton, Minister Karen Andrews, Senator David Van, Dr. Andrew Lee, Tim Watts, and then we get into ASA, Secure Code Warrior, Casada, Quintessence Labs, CyberCX, CyRise, CyzoLens, Startup Victoria, Cinch Security, Women Speak Cyber, the Australian Investment Council, CyberMerc, Vault Cloud, Telstra, Commonwealth Bank, OSINT Combine, Fifth Domain, Deco Secure, Hivint, now Trustwave, AEMO, CoHealth, AWSN, Batum Solutions, Data61, AI Group, Australian Insurance Australia Group, Mercury ISS, Asset Note, the Australian Missing Persons Coordination Unit, the Missing Persons Advocacy Network, Pen 10, Hack Hunter, Truth, Forticode, WorldStack, Right Crowd, Castle Point, Tickaboo, Lava ID, ARNet, the Australian Computer Academy, TAFE Cyber, University of Adelaide, Untapped, Haven Tech, Cortec, Amplify Intelligence, ResponSite, the University of Canberra, Slice Tech, CDFS, Content Group, Ramsay Health, Daltrey, Airlock Digital, Retrospect Labs, Sciremast, BlueScope Steel,
Seek, Deakin University, RMIT University, Kids Security Day, Stone and Chalk, and all of our colleagues at Firemark Labs, EY Australia, and I'm still going, National Australia Bank, the National Network of Nodes of AustCyber, and then our colleagues from multinational organisations who have also been a very significant part of this week too. We will give a great shout out to you as well. Mandiant, Palo Alto Networks, Toll Group, Siemens, Amadeus Capital, Paladin Capital, Division X Ventures, and 1011 Ventures. We've also had all of the primes involved out of the defence industry, BAE Systems, Lockheed Martin Australia, Leidos, Thales Australia, Northrop Grumman Australia, ADI ESA, Palo Alto Networks again. And of course, we could not have done this week without all of the technical support from two great Australian companies in Impress Design and LiveCrowd. What an amazing list of organisations that have brought Cyber Week to you across more than 30 events, some of them in hybrid events in Canberra, Adelaide and Perth. And we wished we could have had you involved, Melbourne, but also in the interwebs through every other location in the country. We've also had people tuning in from over 30 countries. We've had an average of 5,000 people on our circuit board city every day, and we've had 30,000 unique page views of that circuit board city as part of cyberweek.austcyber.com. What an amazing outcome to show that this sector is growing, it is here, and it is having impact. Thank you so much for joining us as part of Australian Week 2020. It gives me great pleasure to say, we're out. Game on.